Hey, it's Les from the TV Dudes. This week, I got to chat with Reeve Carney. Now, Reeve is the great nephew of Art Carney, who co starred in The Honeymooners, but you can Wikipedia that. So instead, we decided to chat about how Julie Taymor got him back into acting, originating the role of Spider Man on Broadway, getting punched by stuntmen for a Taylor Swift video, and his upcoming cabaret style show in New York. Did I mention that he was Dorian Gray on Penny Dreadful? It was a really fun chat, and I hope you dig it. Hey, this is Les.
Hello, this is Reeve Carney.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for taking out time this afternoon to do the interview. I really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, no problem.
So going through Spotify and doing my research for this interview, man, you have a fantastic voice. I'm definitely not the first person to tell you that.
Oh, thank you.
I had primarily known you for Penny Dreadful and playing Dorian Gray, and so yeah, when I told my wife like, oh no, I'm interviewing Dorian Gray,
Oh, sweet.
just as easily led with Spider-Man or Riff Raff from the recent Fox Rocky Horror.
Yeah.
So I wanted
Yeah, that was a blast too.
I wanted to ask something I did not. I realized I'd already seen you in was Julie Taymor's The Tempest.
Oh wow, yeah. That was my first foray into adult acting. No, that sounded so wrong. I mean, as an adult, I just realized my brother said this funny thing the other day, like there are a bunch of adult actors here, and apparently he meant it as a joke, but I didn't understand because I thought, aren't most actors adults? But yeah, I guess
Yeah, I said masseuse once and got sternly corrected that it's massage
Oh,
therapist. It's like, I'm so sorry, I did not mean to.
That's hilarious. Yeah, no, I know. But that was my first acting job as an adult because I did some things as a child, but and as a teenager and stuff like that. But that was my first. Julie Taymor brought me back into acting out of being exclusively a musician for a number of years.
So what had initially taken you kind of away from acting and focusing on your music?
So in the 90s, I don't know if you remember, but it was not particularly smiled upon to be both an actor and a musician. It always seemed that if you didn't see, there weren't a lot of examples of people. I think in the 50s and 60s, there were a lot of examples of people that were musicians or singers at least and actors successfully on both sides, but there wasn't a lot of that in the 90s, and I think maybe it's just because there was a bit of a creative discrimination, in terms of doing that. And so I don't know. I think like if someone were an actor but tried to like make an album, for instance, it was like, oh, that guy, oh, look at him,
I remember Dog Star coming out and Keanu getting roundly messed with about it.
Oh, right. Yeah, they just didn't give him a fair shot. And so I guess it was, it's been great the past, I'd say 10 years, really, maybe a little more than 10 years, but really in the past 10 years, I think it's really opened up. And it's almost expected of people, or it's definitely celebrated if someone can, I guess now it's kind of silly, but I guess the term is that people use for people like that is multi-hyphenate, which makes me laugh. But I guess I understand. It's like actor / singer / blah, blah, but, or hyphen, But, yeah, I don't know. So I guess that's why I wasn't doing it, because I thought I fell in love with music at a pretty young age, and definitely in a deeper way than I fell in love with acting at that age. And so I decided to choose music. And I went to a music academy, a performing arts academy that was called Hamilton Academy of Music. But I think because of Hamilton the musical, they've now changed their name to the Academy of Music and Performing Arts. So I think it's called AMPA now. But it's a great school. So I was really busy with that, and every time my agent would send me an audition, I just decided to, I would rarely go out because I would have rather been practicing to like Charlie Christian records or Kenny Burrell or any sort of jazz instrumentalist, but I did listen to a lot of guitar players. So.
Yeah, and I think you're right. At that time, I think even wanting to eventually make a foray into acting through music would have been a lower expectation bar than what we were looking for out of albums from actors.
Right.
Even Childish Gambino, not 5 years ago, it still felt like it could be a misstep on Donald Glover's career.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So your newest album, your solo album, Youth is Wasted,
Yes.
that was recorded partly, as I understand it, from the time constraints from doing Spider-Man with Julie Taymor?
Yeah, that's what gave me the idea, because I've had a number of bands. A band called Carney is a band that I toured with my brother and two of my best friends. And we toured extensively around the U.S. and Australia. And I think that was about it. But for about 4 or 5 years, and prior to that, I had a band called the Revolving Band. And actually, we're playing a show. I don't know where your audience reaches, or what the reach is of the of this show. But we're playing a concert on May 21st at the Troubadour in Los Angeles, and it's our first show back in 11 years. So I'm really excited about that.
I was about to say, I thought I'd seen something about a reunion on your social media with the Revolving Band. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that, we will be doing that. And and actually, I'll say that after. But yeah, I've decided to record an album on my own, because the schedule of Spider-Man was Broadway is no joke for people, any actors or any entertainers in general. I feel like it's likely the hardest work an entertainer will find themselves doing, but also so rewarding. But you just don't have a lot of time, especially when we were in previews for as long as we were. We had 183 previews. I think we broke the record, and I don't know if that'll be touched for a while. Hopefully not. But I decided to, instead of renting out a studio with a 12-hour block and only being able to use 4 or 5 hours of it, I thought, you know what, I could probably put something together in my apartment. So I investigated and did a lot of research in the gear that I might want to use, and I happened to show up at Guitar Center actually on a day that they were allowing people to demo some products, and so I found these amazing things that by a company called Manley and Blue. You probably know Blue, the microphone company. But I bought 2 things, and basically, I mean, those were the primary color palettes for my album in terms of the recording aspect. And I have a few other pieces of tube gear and things like that. But yeah, I recorded the whole thing in my apartment because of that. Because I would, let's say we do a matinee. I come back in between the matinee and the evening show, and I would record for maybe 2 hours, eat dinner, and then go back to the Spider-Man theater. And then after the show, I'd probably record from maybe midnight till 3 a.m., then go to sleep and maybe do something in the morning before I go. It was really, really a blast. So that's how I made that album. And I recorded drums on 2 tracks at my buddy Mike Elizondo's studio, which was very kind of him to open that up to me. But other than that, every note of music was done at my apartment. Actually, one more thing was done at Matt Wells' studio in New York, which no longer exists, sadly. But yeah, so I'm giving these very long answers, but I hope you don't mind.
But no, that's great. I mean, and that's definitely there's such a long history of the sparse, weird conditions of your favorite albums, like Neil Young's Harvest. I think most of it is like 2 rooms of a house, and they stuck the drums in the center.
Yeah,
like just odd stuff, and Sound City and things like that. Like you look at difference that rooms make.
Yeah,
especially on the emotional content. What separates for you your personal songs versus like show tunes, like stuff you did with U2? Well, I think they both inform one another, and it's so, I feel like it's a tremendous blessing to be able to have the opportunity to do both, to both write my own songs and perform my own songs, and to sing and perform other people's songs. Because I find a lot of times, especially if you find yourself in a rut, learning someone else's song is a way to open you up to, and to kind of both simultaneously demystify and give you a sense of wonder of the mystery of music, if you've somehow lost track of that, which I think is oftentimes what puts people in a rut. So I really love it, because I don't know, I think that singing Bono songs in particular, and the Edges songs, but things that Bono would sing, it really helped me as a singer. I mean, I think it unlocked parts of my voice that I hadn't particularly focused on, or I don't know, maybe it's just maturity and aging and different things.
But being a part of the Spider-Man production, I think, did, I can't thank it enough for what it helped me with as a singer, I think. So I'm really grateful for my time on Broadway. I mean, because you're mic'd, but you're not mic'd in the same way you are in a rock and roll stage. So you have to learn to use your voice in different ways, which is really, really a lot of fun and a great challenge.
Just the differences in the ways that you must have to project for Broadway stage versus how close up and every nuance of your face that the audience can see on something like filming Penny Dreadful.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Is it different when you prepare yourself for roles like prepping for Dorian Gray versus Spider-Man?
Oh, definitely. I mean, obviously, in terms of the content of the personalities of each character, but they're certainly different. I mean, I guess I wouldn't call Dorian. I never thought of Dorian Gray as a villain, although I've heard people consider him to be that in the course of different incarnations of Oscar Wilde's piece. But I always thought I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Patrick Page, but if you're not, you should check him out. I mean, he's incredible, and I've worked with him on a number of projects now. I worked with him in Spider-Man. He played the Green Goblin, and I'm working with him on a new production, a new show now called Hadestown, which is composed by Anais Mitchell, the folk songwriter, and it's a beautiful show. And at times I've actually I've taken a lesson or two from Patrick. An acting lesson, because he's really a master, and he's a teacher as well. And one thing he brought up to me in some of the preparation I did with him on, I think, season 2 of Penny Dreadful, he mentioned that, listen, a predatory animal doesn't think of themselves as a predatory animal. And I used that. I found that really was applicable and helpful in the constant preparation for Dorian Gray, because I do think that, I mean, you would never think of yourself as someone who, you're just doing what you do. And that's kind of what he did. But I think in that sense, I mean, obviously he's not a traditional hero in the sense in the way Spider-Man is. So I guess that's what I meant about the differences. But you were asking about, I think, the scale of film versus the scale of theater.
Yeah. Is it odd to pull back your reactions, or do you find yourself having to, do you feel like you act differently for screen versus stage?
Yeah, I think you definitely do. For me, I find that I live more naturally or exist more comfortably in the screen medium, and I find it challenging, actually, to, as I like to call it, turn up the truth, because you have to keep things truthful while also making them expressive enough for someone to get an emotional reaction, 100 feet away from you when you're on stage, or even maybe sometimes further than 100 feet. But yeah, on the camera, I love the naturalism that can exist on screen, because it really is. I mean, it's in some ways it's actually smaller than, you have to almost be smaller than you are in real life. But I kind of like that. It's like bottling energy in a way, like compressing. I don't know, putting the contents of whatever you're working with under a little bit more pressure. That's kind of how I feel it is. It's like a balloon, like letting out the air very slowly, especially on screen. I feel like that's how it is. Yeah,
there's something about your portrayal of Dorian Gray that really brought out the boredom of immortality, or the weariness of immortality, and how kind of desperate to enjoy life. I liked the showing of that when you see through somebody that's partying too hard and go, oh, I think there's something sad in that. And
oh, cool. Thank you.
And so I really liked that came across, especially with Billy Piper's character. And
oh, yeah.
What was your favorite part of getting to play Dorian? Did you just take home all the costumes or?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They actually did give me a costume, which I said to them, and I don't know if I can commit to this, but I asked them, I said, man, I would wear that to my wedding. Which I have no plans to get married as of yet, but I one day, and it was.
Sorry, honey, your dress has to match this.
Right, that's the thing. So I don't know if I can actually do it, but it was that beautiful ivory like 3-piece suit that Dorian and Lily get shot in by Dr. Victor Frankenstein in I think the end of season 2. And that was, so I have one of those because they made 4 of them because they had to keep putting blood on them and explosive, whatever. So that's pretty awesome. I had it, but I think maybe my favorite part of playing Dorian was, and I wish that there were more opportunities to do it. Maybe I can like make my own web series. No, I'm kidding. But I think my favorite part was treating him like as a human and thinking of the ways that I relate to him and that other humans would relate to him, as opposed to someone who is immortal or not to trying to make him as 3-dimensional as you. That sounds terrible because he's already 3-dimensional. But I guess I mean, like, keeping people guessing. I guess I wanted to do that. I wanted to keep people guessing and not feel like anyone ever knew exactly what his angle on a situation was. And I mean, it was really like it's such a gift when you have writing like that. I have to say it's unusual to be able to speak words that are that beautiful and that well structured consistently. I mean, the entire show, John Logan, our creator and writer, and I mean, he just obviously knocked out of the park, as he always does. But it just made things such a great springboard for whatever an actor might choose to do.
Now you've also got to play another favorite character of mine, who also has a very distinctive voice, Riff Raff on the Rocky Horror.
Oh yeah.
When did you first see Rocky Horror?
I actually, I feel embarrassed to admit this, but the first time I actually watched the entire film, well, when I was 14, my friend Lindsay Felton showed me she was another actor friend of ours as a kid, and I was kind of, when she showed me the scene from Out of Time Warp into Sweet Transvestite, and I remember thinking, whoa, are we allowed to watch this? Like, at that time, I mean, I remember thinking, this is kind of crazy. But I only saw that one scene, and so I didn't see a whole lot of Riff Raff except in the background, because I didn't see the actual Time Warp at that point. But yeah, I didn't actually watch the entire film all the way through until I got the audition, which I feel a little bit embarrassed to admit, but it wasn't something that, like, I think my parents would have encouraged me to watch when I was a kid, even though now I think our version was a little bit more potentially kid-friendly because it was a little less scary in some ways, I think. But I don't know, not that a 14-year-old couldn't watch it, but I grew up in Greenwich Village in New York, and the Waverly Theater was around the corner from my house and my school. And so I used to walk by it every day pretty much. And on the weekends that's where the late night showings originated, as far as I understand. And so I would see the poster, and it did look kind of equal parts terrifying and intriguing. But I don't know. It just wasn't something that I watched as a kid. But yeah, sorry, that's a very long answer, but I did watch it before.
When I first got to college, I had 2 friends that would they would almost like pick and take our squarest, like most uptight small town friends to the midnight show, because it was weirdly dangerous. It felt, it felt like weirdly risque and dangerous.
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
There's a particular, rock scream to Riff Raff's voice that you get to do. Did you know that range was there in your voice? Is that something that you've cultivated?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I've used, I think part of it comes from playing with really loud drummers and also being really excited. I mean, I've always been drawn to that. I mean, I love so many different aspects of the human voice and singing, but like as a kid, I loved Steven Tyler, and I still do. But like, he was one of the earliest influences for me. And even before I discovered Robert Plant, I knew about Steven Tyler. I think probably because Aerosmith was having hits, in the late 80s and early 90s, so I knew about them. Mm-hmm. But they were sort of like the gateway drug to Led Zeppelin for me. And so I don't know, I always loved that sort of thing. And Chris Cornell was another, musical hero of mine. And so yeah, I did. I had figured that out, and I think you'll hear it on a few tracks of Youth is Wasted, my newest album, and also the album that we put out with my band Carney, Mr. Green Volume 1. There's a bit of that on there too. Yeah, I think through touring I developed that. So yeah, that was something that I'd been doing, in some capacity.
And you've got a biopic coming up where, and you were talking earlier about covers being an inspiring thing, but you're playing Jeff Buckley in a biopic.
Yes.
I weirdly know him for a cover of a song I love, where one of the rare times where I love the cover as much as the original. His version of Hallelujah is equal to Cohen's for me.
Yeah, I agree. It's almost the version, in a way.
I was in a room once and realized all my friends knew Rufus Wainwright's version, and I was like, "What are we talking about? Shrek? Why is that? Why is this tied to Shrek?" And everybody went, "Why do you know that song?" And I went, "Wait a minute, why do you know that song?"
And they hadn't even heard. Right, they hadn't heard the Jeff version.
I think they had, but that just wasn't their version. It wasn't, I guess, the first one they heard.
Oh wow, yeah. I mean, Rufus Wainwright's great too, but that Jeff's version of that song it's pretty remarkable, obviously.
Yeah, and I love his original tunes, but that's a cover that defines somebody for me. What was it like taking on that role? I mean, it's both a tragic story. I'm not sure what aspect the movie's covering of his life, but
yeah, and so far it's only been preparation. I mean, I got the role. Actually, it's crazy to say this. I'm really glad it hasn't happened yet, though, because I think it's given me the opportunity to grow in certain ways that I think will be helpful. But I got the role like 6 years ago, I think now, and it's been a process to get it off the ground. I think because everyone really cares about it and they want it to be right, and they know that you can only do it once. And so, but I think that it looks like we are going to do it this year. That's what I've been told. So that would be incredible. And I'm just in the preparation process now. I've been kind of, I turn, myself on and off of the preparation mode, depending on how imminent I think the production will be. But right now it looks like it's kind of go time, I think. So I've been preparing again for it.
You've got an intimate show coming up at the Green Room 42, right?
Yes, I'm so excited. I've never done anything like that before. I mean, I kind of do things a little bit like that, but I'm trying to make this one even more with Cabaret at the forefront as much as I can, because I've never done a traditional Cabaret show, but that's what they do there. And so I'm going to do my best to step into that.
140 seats or so. I mean, really small, kind of centered around the piano, right?
Exactly.
Are you pulling mostly from Youth is Wasted, do you think?
Yeah, I think I'll primarily, the majority of the set will be my original music, but I want to do something special for the fans that will likely come to that particular performance. And so I'm trying to think, what would they want to hear? Let's see. So I'm putting the set together now, and actually today I'm going to determine what some of the additional things I may add will be, and today will be the day that I figure that out.
Well, I didn't want to bring this up to the very end because I know it's going to overshadow everything you do for the rest of your career. But the real reason that everybody knows you is that you played the titular Trouble.
Oh yeah.
In Taylor Swift's music video. Did you get to talk songwriting with her? Was it fun working with Taylor Swift?
Oh yeah, it was a lot of fun. I haven't had the chance to talk. I would love to. We didn't really stay in touch at all, but she was kind enough to invite me to the 2013 VMAs where she won for that video. But I haven't talked to her since. But yeah, she's tremendously talented, and I mean, and with all the like, for instance, on my album, I didn't use any auto-tune, obviously, or any real trickery at all. Like I recorded into Logic Pro, which is like Pro Tools sort of, but I obviously went in through a lot of tube like vintage gear on the way in, to give it a different sort of sound. And I basically used Logic Pro as a tape machine. I didn't do any of the tricks that you can do within it. And so sometimes you don't know with some of these pop singers like what they're doing because people use so many tricks. But man, Taylor's voice is incredible because I mean she was singing in the set, so I got to hear her, and she's got her, like, obviously she's no joke, And as a songwriter, I certainly would love the opportunity to write a song with her, but it hasn't happened yet. And who knows? It'd be great. And it's funny, you made the joke, but honestly, I think I got like 40,000. I think like half of my Instagram following came from like that video because she tweeted about me or something. And like the next day I was like, boom.
The first thing I thought when it came on was like November Rain or Paula Abdul's Rush or like the heyday of like the 7-minute romantic epic.
Right.
That and I think when you pick up a pool ball and
oh man,
was it wild filming the choreography of all that?
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, like those stuntmen, I felt so bad because I'm not a stuntman, so I'd done a bunch of a number of flying stunts in Spider-Man, but that was it. But they let me obviously, and I don't know if they even had a secondary option, but they let me do all the stunts in the Taylor Swift video. But it was crazy fighting with real stunt guys. Because, I mean, I felt bad. At one point, I actually elbowed the guy in the face, and I was like, oh, my gosh, no. And he seemed a bit rattled, but he didn't, obviously, get totally upset with me. But then they were really punching me in the stomach every time. Like, they obviously, like, basically what they do is they wind up and they come in with a lot of force, and then when they get really close, they slow it down, so it's not as hard as the punch looks. But I was getting punched every time, and it's kind of crazy. But it was fun, and then I cut my finger on some glass on the floor at one point. I remember that. But it's crazy when you're doing those fights, you don't remember how you got an injury. It's like, oh okay, right, okay. But I don't know. It was a lot of fun. Like it was a blast. But I was nervous about like hitting the guy in the face accidentally. Oh gosh, I felt really bad.
Well, luckily your prep for your Green Room 42 show should be substantially easier than that.
Yeah, well, yeah, you would think, but I do some things, like it's a bit of a balancing act, as people will see. I've incorporated some other things which allow me to feel a bit more like a one-man band.
Oh, cool.
And, so my Spider-Man balance helps me in that regard.
Well, that show's coming up on May 3rd.
May 3rd, yes.
Tickets are still available at www.thegreenroom42.com. Oh, I was going to say I have a friend that makes fun of me because the Ryan Adams record that I have is his cover of Taylor Swift's.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And so, yeah, when I saw you were in the video, I was like, I'll let him cover a T-Swift song. That would be hysterical.
I should do that. Like, I don't know if I'm not sure if Green Room 42 is the place to do the Taylor Swift song, but you never know. I mean, I could do that. I've thought about doing it. But I think I'm going to focus on things that are a bit more, because it is a cabaret sort of setting. I want to do things. Yeah, I want to play some things that I think will excite that audience to the best of my ability.
Well, man, I can't wait to see what you do next, and hopefully the Buckley biopic gets going in full gear.
Thank you.
I've really enjoyed talking to you today, man.
Oh, you too, Les. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.
The TV Dudes is an independently run podcast and a member of the Electric Sweater Podcast Network. We are exclusively listener supported. If you'd like to help us out, go to patreon.com/tvdudes. You can like us on Facebook and Twitter @TVDudes. All the music for our show is by our friend and original TV dude, Gregory J. Amani Smith. To find out more about us, go to thetvdudes.com and electricsweater.com. I'm Grant Davis. Thanks for listening.